In this video, I'm going to talk about the phenomenon of Ginatayomi. Now, I actually learned this word like a few weeks ago because I made a video about kobun, and a lot of people were saying, hey, that's kind of like Ginatayomi, or that is a type of Ginatayomi. And I was like, what's that? So I looked it up, and I learned something, and now I'm going to tell you about it because I imagine some of you don't know what it is either. So Ginatayomi is a specific Japanese phenomenon that refers to a sentence which can be read in multiple ways, including ways that don't make sense. Now, in English, we would call these garden path sentences, the idea being you are lost in kind of garden paths. As yes, in any language, there are sentences that kind of work like this. For instance, a common example in English is the old man, the boat. Even for a native speaker, this sentence can be quite hard to parse because it is very easy to assume that old here is an adjective and man is a noun. So it feels like you're saying the old man, comma, the boat. And indeed, this garden path is garden pathy enough that Google Translate gets confused about it as well. But this can be a grammatically correct and sensible sentence if we remember that old can be a noun, as in the show was attended by both the old and the young, and man can be a verb that means, to operate. So the old people, man, as in operate the boat. In other cases, garden path sentences produce two meanings which are both potentially viable even if one is less likely. A very common example of this is time flies like an arrow, which of course we can analyze as a sentence referring to how fast time goes, but also potentially referring to a type of fly which enjoys arrows. Time flies, which can be stressed by the common semi-amusing phrase, time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana, which you can see on this shirt for some reason. Why does this shirt exist? Why is a very muscular man wearing it? I don't know. I don't know why things are. Anyway, in Japanese then, Ginatayomi is basically this same phenomenon, but in Japanese. One very, very common example that's put online is this sentence here, which is supposed to be read as Higashimatsudo, which is a place in Japan, Hanazono, which is like a term for garden, Ganka, or ophthalmologist, eye doctor. I would rather learn 2,000 plus kanji than how to spell this word. And I did, actually. Anyway, if you parse things wrong, though, it is very easy to read this as Higashimatsudo wa nazo no ganka, or Higashimatsudo is a mysterious eye doctor. Indeed, this reading is so possible that on signs for this eye doctor, which is a real business, they put a space in there, even though Japanese doesn't like spaces, because clearly they're tired of being the example sentence for explaining Ginatayomi. Another fun, simple example is this sentence here, which is supposed to be read as konosaki iki nokoru, or we will live from this point, like we will make it, but can easily be parsed as kono sensei kinokoru. Now, kinokoru is not a verb. You cannot mushroom. Well, actually, you can, but not formally. But again, these garden path sentences don't actually have to make sense. They just have to be something that you read. You go down that path, even if at the end you realize, oh, that's not possible. And yeah, you could fix it with a comma or by writing iki no koru with two kanji, but we're not here to fix things. We're here to get confused and have fun, and then label that as a phenomenon. And while garden path is a metaphor to, again, getting lost in a garden, fancy person's garden, not like a normal person's garden, Ginatayomi actually comes from a prototypical example of a Ginatayomi because it links back to this sentence here, which you should read as Benkei, a person, took up their naginata. But again, if you mispart this, you can read it as Benkei ga na, which is a particle, showing like wish or desire in some cases, like, sure would be nice, picked up their ginata. A ginata is not a thing, but again, that doesn't matter. So, man, I really wish Benkei would pick up their ginata is a possible parsing of this sentence. Indeed, because of this, they're also sometimes called Benkei-yomi. And if you'd like more, you can check out the Wikipedia page for them, which has lots of fun examples, some of which you can see here, which often can be solved by kanji or commas, etc. But again, it's more fun if we don't solve them. Now, personally for me then, I consider Ginatayomi as a separate phenomena compared to kobun, because a Ginatayomi is one that can just happen naturally while reading a sentence, whereas an kobun is one that only happens because of an unfortunately placed sentence break. For instance, I don't think anyone would see a sentence like this and read it as uni onegaishimasu at all. But this depends on your definition of Ginatayomi. If you're strict about it, like I am, then no, they're different. But if you just consider Ginatayomi to be any kind of misreading, then it works. Or if you believe this AI summary that states that Ginatayomi can be caused by a misplaced comma, then I guess that does allow kobun to be a type of Ginatayomi. But while I definitely see the potential for comments like this to be correct, I don't think this AI summary is correct because wherever I can see, commas are used to make the different readings of a Ginatayomi clear. They're not the cause of the Ginatayomi. Indeed, Japanese people traditionally don't even use commas, so it'd be weird to have a phenomena that is related to the use of commas, especially since dictionaries like the Kokuchi Daijiten assert this has been used since at least 1900s, and I can find uses via Google Books, which not only come from 1930s, but actually reference the specific origin that I've already talked about. And, as you can see, use commas to differentiate the two readings in order to explain how Ginatayomi work. What's kind of fun, though, is that a new form of this kind of misreading, which you can label as a subtype or its own thing, it doesn't really matter, has arisen more recently due to the Japanese internet. Because a number of popular Japanese internet wikis, such as Nico-Nicopedia, have had a feature where if you're typing an article and one of the words you type is the title of an extant page in that wiki, a auto link will be created, which will of course create a blue line. So if, for instance, you happen to type a long word which is actually made up of sound sequences that can be broken into smaller words, and all of those smaller words have their own page, but the longer word doesn't, it creates a solid blue line which looks to indicate as though the entire word has a page, but in reality, these are different articles. I know it's a bit confusing, but use the word Shironagasu Kujira as an example because this is called Shironagasu Kujira Gensho, or the blue whale phenomenon. Because Shirona is a character from Pokemon, Gasu is gas and it smells other things, but the important part is that it has a Nico Nico page, and Kujira is a whale, obviously, but again, importantly, has a Nico Nico page. So the first time that somebody on Nico-Nicopedia typed blue whale, it looked as if there was a page for it when it was actually 3 separate pages. I obviously don't know what the first word that caused this phenomenon to happen. Basically, on an online thread in 2011, which you're looking at here, wherein somebody said, hey, what should we call this kind of phenomenon? Within a few minutes, somebody came up with this as the title, and it just kind of stuck. So good for them, I guess. Congratulations, 248751, you made up a word. Although ironically, but because of the creation of this phenomenon, blue whale now has its own page on Nico-Nicopedia. So if you type blue whale in an article for some reason, it will link to that now, preventing blue whale from being an example of the blue whale phenomenon. But if you want more examples, you can check out the Nico-Nicopedia page for this phenomenon, which is that if somebody ever wrote the word eye contact on a Nico-Nicopedia page, it would look as if it had its own page, but this was actually links to the page for icon and the page for tact. So there you go, I learned some words, and now I'm talking about these words to a camera, hoping someone will watch them, which sort of sums up this entire channel. But I guess that means it's time for me to end the video and go home. Although, where did I put my Ginata?